Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love college football as much as I do. Today I want to talk about the Clemson Tigers. I did say yesterday Clemson was going to beat Florida State, so you already know I have them as a win. If you want to see me talk about that game, go back to my FSU video from last night. As you all know, everyone knows, they played Georgia in Atlanta in that first game. I think people are kind of, disrespecting Clemson a little bit. Look, I get it. Georgia has the better team. They have better players, better talent there. I think Kirby Smart has surpassed Dabo Swinney in terms of coaching ability and all that to an extent. Not abilities, but accomplishments. But look, Dabo Swinney is still Dabo Swinney. He's been around forever. And when you look at his recruiting class, they're not top 10 classes, but he's still getting really good players. And even before Trevor Lawrence was around, yeah, he had Deshaun Watson, but his team was still being developed. They still had the same level of players that he's getting today. So I don't think people are really taking them seriously and respecting Clemson like they should. I said it before and I'll say it again. Last year, yeah, Clemson lost 4 games, but aside from the turnovers, Clemson proved that they could play with anybody. They played with Florida State, who went on to go 13-0, win the ACC championship, who got screwed out of the playoffs. Okay? So that means if they can play with them, they can play with anybody and beat anybody. They don't shoot themselves in the foot, which is why I'm not picking them to beat Georgia. But I think it'll be a close, competitive game. Georgia really didn't impress me that much offensively because outside of Auburn and Alabama's defenses, what other defenses did they really play that were any good? So, of course, they're going to look good offensively. Alabama proved that if they play any type of good defense, they'll struggle. And that's why they'll struggle here. But because Georgia takes care of the football a lot better, I think they beat Clemson 24-17. Again, Clemson has really good athletes. I think people are sleeping on Clemson. Which brings me to the rest of their schedule. Appalachian State, then they should have no problem with that. They should win 38-10. It's at home. Then they're off. And then after that, they come back home to take on NC State. NC State has had their number lately. They've whooped them 2 of the last 3 games. Not in Death Valley, not this year. They should beat NC State comfortably, 27-10. I think the defense helps them pull away. I think Cade Klubnik starts to level up and play a lot better. And by this point, this will be his 3rd year in the system, his 2nd year as a starter. He'll start to figure himself out as a player and mature and get better. And really, the second half of last year, the part of why they won 5 games in a row, he did have turnovers, but he had a lot less of them. He played a lot better. So I expect that to play a factor in the Georgia game as well. Then they stay home and play Stanford. They should win that game, no problem. 41-0. That's my prediction. I don't think Stanford's any good. And then they go to Florida State. I believe they upset and get a revenge victory over Florida State. They have owned Florida State in the last decade. They've only lost to them twice. So I don't think that's any different. They haven't lost at FSU in 10 years. I don't think they lose here either. I believe Klubnik and that Clemson offense will be motivated to get more points and finish a full game, not just be productive for 3 quarters. I believe the missed field goal kicks will give Clemson a lot of ammunition to play hard in this game. And I still think Florida State, yeah, they have good players. But that team that beat Clemson last year kind of played together for the most part for the last few years. And that's what tells you it took a lot much to beat a team like Clemson. So I don't think they get it done at home. I believe Clemson wins 31-27. And then they're on the road, again, at Wake Forest. No problem. They should win 29-7. Then they come back home and play Virginia. Virginia, I think, will be a little bit better than last year. They lost a lot of close games. They did beat a top 10 North Carolina. But I don't think that's going to be anywhere near enough to play with a really good Clemson team. Clemson wins this game no problem, 40-17. I think Virginia gets a few garbage time scores to make it closer than what it actually is. And then they're off again. And then after that, there's a bunch of really hard games. They're home against Louisville. Not hard games, but there's one game in particular. There's 2 games that are really tough for them. I'm going to talk about Virginia Tech and South Carolina last. They do play Louisville at home. I think they win that game 31-13. I think their new coach has kind of reached his ceiling last year. He didn't do much at Purdue. I don't expect him to do very much this year with Louisville. Sorry. Then they go at Virginia Tech. I'm going to talk about that one a little bit later. Then they go to Pittsburgh. I think they win that game in a tough game. The last time they went to Pitt, they struggled. I think they'll struggle again because Pittsburgh is a physical team. They're tough to deal with. They're not good, great, but anytime you play somebody tough on the lines of scrimmage, it's very tough to deal with. I believe they win this game 23-13. Then they come back home to take on the Citadel. 55-7, no problem. Now, I want to talk about Virginia Tech, and I want to talk about South Carolina. Let's talk about Virginia Tech first, okay? Virginia Tech did go 6-6 last year. People are talking about them a lot. I understand offensively the hype behind it, but also power just went out for us for a brief moment. But I don't really see, but defensively, their defense was not very good when they played good teams or average teams. And yes, their offense was great when they were able to run the football. 5 or 6 of those losses came from not being able to get the run game going. They were turnover prone. They had a lot of problems. And I know Drones, the quarterback, is still there, but if you can't get him going, if you can't run the football, you got no chance. And I know this game is at home, so they'll be inspired to play really hard. This is a potential, like how Uncle Lou likes to say, trap game. But I think Clemson is better. I think they're just a more talented team. And even though they have the home field advantage over at Clemson, the last few times Clemson has gone there, they've had no problems with them, whether it's been home in the ACC championship game or away. It doesn't matter where this game is played. I don't think this is any different. I think by now Cade Klubnik is more seasoned as a player. He has gotten better at not turning the ball over. Still very explosive. The talent will start to show even more than just shades of what he can do. He'll be more consistent. Maffa is going to be a really good running back by now. More of the guy now that Shipley's gone. Clemson wins and pulls away 33-16. I think Clemson's defense will hold Virginia Tech to a few field goals and force a turnover too to help Clemson pull away. But it's going to be a tough game. It's a game they could lose. And then there's South Carolina that they got to play at home. As you all know, last time they played in Death Valley, South Carolina not only beat them and upset them, but kept them out the college football playoff. So South Carolina, I've seen the transfer portal additions they've had. They don't recruit badly. And even when South Carolina wasn't very good, they lost close games to Georgia, and including Clemson. And they also lost to Florida in a close game. A bunch of games that they could have and probably should have won. And I know Spencer Rattler's gone, but every other position besides quarterback that they've recruited and reached out for the transfer portal, they filled those needs pretty good. Mostly I've noticed the lines of scrimmage, offensive, defensive linemen, a bunch of blue chip players and other big, strong guys out of that transfer portal. And Shane Beamer, I think he's a really good coach. You know, I think he's better than what people want to give him credit for. I mean, it's clearly that program's a lot better than what it was before he got there. He at least had them having a fighting chance against Clemson to get to a bowl, even though they didn't. Before that, he had back-to-back winning seasons, 7-6 one year, and then 8-5, losing to Notre Dame in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. But he did beat a top 10 Clemson and a top 10 Tennessee. So I think this will be Clemson's hardest home game of the year. Clemson should win. I think Klubnik will probably struggle, not because I don't think he's very good. I still think he's good, but even the best players in college football, you know, you look back, and especially at quarterback, they might have games where they play good, but they just struggle because the other team shows up to play. They got good players. I think South Carolina has good players, and they still have to find ways to win. And that's what separates those guys from the other guys. I think this is a game for Cade Klubnik to really solidify it. Look, this guy was a 5-star. He clearly had good moments last year. Most of the bad moments happened up until they were 4-4. And again, he still did have turnovers, but they were a lot less. And he was better at throwing the football. He's going to get better, guys. That's my honest opinion. So my final prediction for Clemson is they'll be 11-1. Now, I did talk about the Florida State video. Their best case scenario, I said they'll be 9-3. They could go 11-1. They could beat Miami. They could beat Clemson. So if that happens for Clemson, at worst case, they could be 9-3. I think Dabo Swinney he's petty. He's shown that against the college football playoff, against the media, against other people that question his program or question him as a coach. I believe Dabo Swinney is back. He is serious about, he's not comfortable because he's always talked about, I won 11 games this year, I did this and that. I don't think he's dwelling in the past anymore. I think this guy has gotten serious. He's remotivated, and we all know what Dabo Swinney is capable of when he's motivated. And that Georgia game, if Cade Klubnik has leveled up to the point where he don't turn the ball over, they can beat Georgia. So they very well could be 12-0. Who knows? I think Clemson wins out. They make it to the ACC championship. I don't know who they'll play. Probably Miami. But hey, that's it for me though. Clemson 11-1. They're back with a vengeance.